Dallas Goedert, Darius Slay, and two other underrated Eagles are crucial in beating Washington on Sunday. I'll tell you why on this Friday edition of Locked On Eagles.
You are Locked On Eagles, your daily Philadelphia Eagles podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We thank you so much for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day. I'm your host, Louie DiBiase. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. There are so many important players this Sunday for the Eagles when it comes to beating the Washington Commanders in the NFC Championship to get to Super Bowl 59. Of course, Jalen Hurts, Saquon Barkley, Lane Johnson, Jordan Mailata, Cam Jurgens, if he's healthy, listed as questionable on today's final injury report. Jalen Carter, Zach Bond, and Quinyon Mitchell, the three pillars of the defense. Like, the list goes on and on. But one guy we are not talking about enough that's crucial in this matchup is tight end Dallas Goedert. Dallas Goedert has been one of the more underrated players during this playoff run. In two games against Green Bay and Los Angeles, he is averaging 51.5 yards per game, 4 catches for 47 yards against the Packers, and that touchdown, of course, we see in the graphic, our YouTube viewers, where he stiff-armed that Packers defensive back into oblivion 3 different times. 4 catches in both games, 51 yards against the Rams, 3 explosive plays and touchdowns combined. He had 2 receptions over 20 yards, 1 over 30, also had that big-time touchdown against the Packers, had another explosive play negated from what I thought was a ticky-tack penalty against the Rams with that ineligible man downfield rule that they really have to review this offseason. But Dallas Goedert has been super clutch in the playoffs, and that shouldn't surprise you. A few weeks ago when we were talking about like who are the Eagles that consistently step up in the postseason when it matters most, a guy I mentioned that's been doing it since 2018 is Dallas Goedert. Goedert caught some big plays in the 2018 playoff run, including a touchdown against Chicago. 2019, he led the Eagles in receiving against Seattle. 2021 against Tampa. In 2022, he scored a touchdown against the Giants, one-handed, was incredible in the Super Bowl as well. Dallas Goedert has been one of your most reliable players in the playoffs since 2018. And this year, he's really been your only reliable player in the passing game. I don't want to say reliable player because when Devontae Smith's number has been called, he has stepped up. It's just been few and far between. I should say Dallas Goedert has been the most consistent and the most explosive part of your passing game. Like, he's the only guy creating 20-plus yard plays. And notice a lot of them are run after the catch. He's the guy in the clutch that's been making big-time receptions. You look at that Packers game, not only the touchdown, which was a huge one. It was a one-score game before Goedert scored there. He also caught a big-time one-handed catch to convert a first down the following drive when Green Bay answered with a touchdown of their own. Goedert moved the chains. That helped the Eagles drive down and kick what ended up being the game-ending field goal. So a couple big-time plays against Green Bay, against the Rams as well, like that play over the middle of the field where he has, I think it was a 31-yard reception. Jalen Hurts finds him over the middle. That was in a crucial spot as well. It's a one-score ball game. Like, he has been your most consistent, clutch, and explosive player. If Jalen Hurts is not mobile on Sunday, and he does look like he's moving pretty well in a lot of the limited practice videos we're getting of him moving around. Like, I don't think he's going to be at 100% like he has been running the football. He's looked as explosive as ever, especially against the Rams last Sunday before it started snowing. I don't think he'll be at 100%. I think he'll be okay, though. He'll be able to run. Was not listed on the injury report today. But let's say he is a little bit more limited than we thought, and it starts to bother him throughout the game, and he has to sit in the pocket. Well, who's the guy that if he needs to get the ball out quick, he finds over the middle of the field? You could find in the screen game, mesh concepts, run after the catch ability to create explosives when Jalen's legs can't. It's Dallas Goedert right now. Like, yeah, Devontae Smith, I think, is of equal importance, and so is A.J. Brown. But A.J. Brown right now does not look healthy. Like, he does not look like his 100% version of himself. That, whatever the knee or leg injury is, I do think he looks limited. I've watched a lot of their route trees over the last 2 weeks, and a lot of it's basic, and I think some of it's on Kellen Moore, of course, just by design. It's hard for these guys to create separation with the routes they're running. They take long to develop, and Jalen's not seeing the field well at times. But AJ also, you're just not seeing that explosive step. And of course, the snow plays a factor. But I don't know if you guys are seeing it too. I just don't think AJ Brown looks fully healthy. And Devontae is going to get a lot of the attention, right? So I think Dallas Goedert is so important to this passing game to help out a banged-up Jalen Hurts, to help out a banged-up A.J. Brown, to help an inconsistent passing offense at least create explosives and move the chains. And that's what he's been doing. So Dallas is a massive part of the puzzle, and that's why I got nervous. I'm not going to lie. Jalen Hurts' mobility was the number one thing I was watching on the injury report. But I also saw Dallas Goedert's name pop up. He did not practice on Wednesday. Cam Jurgens also held out of practice those 2 days with a back injury. I do think Cam will play. Thank God that Dallas Goedert was off the injury list today and that he's a full go. Because if they didn't have Goedert in this game, I would not feel good about their passing game. I really wouldn't. Like, he has been, and again, he's such a frustrating player to handle because he's hurt all the time in the regular season. He got banged up again this week. Like, he's always injured. But this playoff run is showing the value of Dallas Goedert. It's showing why we're so frustrated, because when he's on the field, he's one of the best players in the world doing what he does as a blocker and as a receiver. And it's why when they got to restructure this contract, you can't pay him like you'd pay a Travis Kelce, right? You can't pay him top dollar, even though he could command it in the open market. He's 30 years old. That's the other thing. You can't pay a banged-up 30-year-old like top-tier money. But hopefully you do get a contract done, because at the same time, I don't want to lose Dallas Goedert. Like, this guy it's another level. And it is really cool that they're playing Zach Ertz in the NFC title. It's kind of crazy. An Eagles legend that helped win them a Super Bowl, caught the game winner, is playing against the Eagles now in a game of this magnitude. I don't know if I've ever seen that. Like, when was the last time a former Eagle... I mean, there's been some big regular season games against, a Deshaun Jackson, right, or a LaShawn McCoy, Brian Dawkins. But when was the last time the Eagles played a former legend of their own in the playoffs, especially with a trip to the Super Bowl? I genuinely can't remember seeing that kind of game. If you remember, hit me up on X at DiBiase-LOE. Would love to know if this has happened before. It's a really cool story. It's awesome to see Zach Ertz is still an effective player. 7 touchdowns with the Commanders this year, almost 700 yards, almost 70 receptions as well. He's had a rejuvenated season in D.C., but Dallas Goedert showing you why the Eagles made the right call in 2021 when it comes to picking between Goedert and Zach. Dallas does things that Ertz and other players, most players at this position, just cannot do. So I really do think when it comes to finding more consistency in the passing game, helping Jalen Hurts get the ball out faster on Sunday and not hold on to it forever, helping him, if he does have limited mobility, create explosives, use the middle of the football field more, move the chains. Dallas Goedert, I think, is crucial in that equation on Sunday. There's 3 other super underrated Eagles, though, that are crucial in this game I want to get into. We'll talk about that coming up next right here on the Locked On Eagles podcast. Today's episode of the Locked On Eagles podcast is brought to you by PrizePicks. It's playoff time. If you're like me, you want to make the most of these final weeks of football action. That's where PrizePicks comes in. If you love football and want a chance to win real money while watching the games, PrizePicks is the place for you. It's the best way to turn your sports opinions into cash with daily fantasy player projections. With PrizePicks, you simply pick more or less on player stats like total passing yards or rushing touchdowns, and for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your money, you can make your picks in less than 60 seconds. Whether you're looking for a flex play to boost your payout or want to cash out quickly, PrizePicks has you covered. With over 10 million members and billions in winnings, it's clear that people are loving this platform. I've been playing for a while now. I've been having a blast. It's so easy to use. You can get your payouts, by the way, in as little as 15 minutes. They got weekly promos like Taco Tuesday, discounts, and even more value to my lineups. This week even has a free pick for the NFC Championship. Looks like Jaden Daniels needs 1 passing yard for you to win 1 square. Here's a special offer for Locked On NFL listeners. Download the app today and use the code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's PrizePicks. Run your game. Thanks as always for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day. Dallas Goedert is crucial to the Eagles getting to the Super Bowl on Sunday. I think he is and has been the most consistent part of your passing game. But there's 3 other players on the Eagles, on offense and defense, that we're not talking about a lot this week, but their roles are instrumental in beating the Commanders. 2 on offense and 1 on defense. On defense, it's cornerback Darius Slay. On offense, it's wide receiver Devontae Smith, and it's backup running back Kenneth Gainwell. Devontae Smith is important for a lot of the same reasons as I alluded to discussing Dallas Goedert. Devontae Smith has been one of your most consistent playoff players since he was drafted in 2021. Actually broke the record on Sunday against the Rams for most playoff receiving yards in Eagles history, which is an incredible accomplishment. A.J. Brown, I don't know how healthy he is. Also, when you look back to that second game, Eagles-Commanders in D.C., Marshawn Lattimore's debut against the Eagles this year, he was shadowing A.J. Brown a lot of that football game. And I want Quinyon Mitchell. I would do that personally against Terry McLaurin. I would love to see Quinyon Mitchell shadow. I don't think they're going to do that, which is why I think Darius Slay is so important in this football game, because I think unlike those first 2 matchups, I do think the Commanders will move. Cliff Kingsbury is going to move McLaurin around the formation a lot more. I don't think he's just going to have him lined up on the left side like he did the first game for 90% of his snaps going to Quinyon Mitchell's side. So that's why Darius Slay is so, to me, crucial on Sunday. And you could make the same case for Cooper DeJean, but that's why Devontae Smith is important too, because Marshawn Lattimore, he does shadow wide receivers. He was all over A.J. Brown that last game. Now, A.J. Brown had a ton of success against Lattimore and normally has his number, and hopefully if Brown's out there on Sunday, he will be. He's going to play. He should hopefully be effective, but with Lattimore shadowing, it gives Devontae Smith, I think, the advantage against the Commanders' second corner, whether that's Mike Sandstrill or their other starter who I'm drawing a blank on right now, the other rookie. Devontae has, I think, the mismatch in that equation. He's healthy, and like Dallas Goedert, Devontae is key in moving the chains on third down, those possession plays, using the middle of the field, playing him in the slot. If Jalen's mobility is limited and they want to get that quick passing game going, use some more tempo. Jalen Hurts and Jaden Daniels are the 2 best tempo quarterbacks in the league this year from an efficiency perspective when the offense goes no huddle. Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, they're so important in that way. And like I said, Darius Slay, I think he's going to see a lot of Terry McLaurin this week. And De'Ami Brown had a really good game against the Lions. Like, De'Ami Brown is a player that suddenly has kind of come on late, and the Commanders have a couple legitimate passing targets. So Darius Slay, Devontae Smith, so important in this game against Washington. And I think Kenneth Gainwell, low-key, sneaky underrated for this game because of just the multiple hats that he wears. Kenneth Gainwell, I think, had a couple big plays in the kickoff return game last week that really set the Eagles up with good field position. And they're going to need all hands on deck in this game to get to the Super Bowl. Everything can help. And if special teams can start making you plays, like if Kenneth Gainwell can start getting you to the 40-yard line, that's really going to take the pressure off Jalen as well. And you've seen Will Shipley at times this year return kicks, and Isaiah Rodgers and a few other players, but Kenneth Gainwell has been their most consistent kickoff returner. So I think he's really important in that way. And also, kind of like it's a similar theme. Goedert, Smith. I'm just trying to think of how to take the pressure off Jalen Hurts, how to get him more in a rhythm in the passing game. If they want to get the ball out quickly, if they want explosive plays in space, Kenneth Gainwell has shown that in the open field, if you check it down, he can make things happen. Like, his spin move is really lethal. And so he's not going to play a whole lot. Averages only a couple touches a game on offense. But if you can get him the ball in space a few times, like, I do think that they just need, again, the quick, I kind of like, there's times holding onto the football like I can live with. If Jalen's trying to create with his legs, I've understood that. I've accepted that mobile quarterbacks a lot of the time, they're just naturally going to hold on to the football longer. So if they're trying to make a play and it's the right kind of situation, I can live with it. If they're trying to play more aggressive like last week and push the ball down the field, that's something I called for after the Packers game. I wanted to see more shots. I can live with them holding onto the football in that way. But if it's because Jalen Hurts is not seeing the field well, he's playing just too conservative and I just overthinking and his clock is slowing down, that's not good. So if they want to get the quick passing game going, I think sometimes just taking what the defense is giving you, seeing the check down, seeing the underneath routes, using the middle of the field, the screen game too. Like, can we get that going? The running back passing game, like wheel routes. Can we try that on Sunday? I just think using these kind of players in space, just giving those guys chances to make plays, even if the play doesn't seem sexy, like he doesn't seem that open, it might seem like a 2 to 3 yard play. Just give these guys a chance to do more with it. That's the thing is this Eagles offense doesn't, I think, give their skill position players enough opportunities to turn what seems like an average play into more. You know what I mean? And I think that's really important because these guys are really good in space. I mean, A.J. Brown is really good after the catch. He doesn't get enough opportunities to show that off in Philadelphia. Dallas Goedert, we've seen it. Saquon Barkley, that 3rd and 14 check down, right? I mean, that was incredible that he turned that into a first down. Kenneth Gainwell turned a bunch of checkdowns this year, including in the playoffs, into first downs. Had a run for 10 yards as well. He's shown his explosiveness. They just got to give these guys opportunities to make plays in space. So that's kind of the theme on offense. And then on defense, stop Terry McLaurin. Like, if you can do what you did to Terry McLaurin the first game, where he had 1 catch for 10 yards, and eliminate him, you're going to the Super Bowl on Sunday. All right, guys, coming up next right here on the Locked On Eagles podcast, I'm going to tell you why this team reminds me a lot more of the 2017 Eagles than the 2022 Eagles. We'll get into that coming up next right here on Locked On Eagles. Today's episode of the Locked On Eagles podcast is brought to you by Gametime. Gametime is getting me to the NFC Championship between the Eagles and, of course, the Washington Commanders. I love going to live events like the Eagles games, music, concerts, theater, comedy, and more. One of my favorite moments ever through Gametime was getting to the Eagles 49ers NFC title in 2022. The energy, the excitement was just one of the best days of my life. Now, Gametime has made it even easier to get tickets for your favorite events with their new feature, Gametime Picks. This feature filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Recently, again, I was looking at tickets for Eagles Commanders using the Gametime app. With the Gametime Picks, I found amazing deals and could even see the view of my seat before buying. The super deal was particularly impressive, offering great seats at unbeatable prices. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? It's game time. And guys, today's episode of Locked On Eagles is also brought to you by LinkedIn. As a small business owner, your work doesn't end when the clock hits 0, or I should say 5. The clock never hits 0 when it comes to owning a small business. Your business is always on your mind, especially, for me, like this podcast, which means when it's time to hire, you need a partner that works just as hard as you do. That's where LinkedIn Jobs comes in. When you clock out, LinkedIn clocks in. LinkedIn makes it easy to post your job for free, share it with your network, and get qualified candidates all in one place. Post your job. LinkedIn's new feature can help you write job descriptions and then quickly get your job in front of the right people with deep candidate insights. And here's a pro tip. Add the hashtag hiring frame to your profile picture to double your reach to qualified candidates. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions do apply. All right, Eagles Commanders this Sunday. This is my final segment until the big game. I'm nervous, and it's not because I'm nervous that I think the Eagles are going to lose this game. As much as I respect Jaden Daniels and as much as I respect elite quarterback play and how much it can elevate everything else, and it really could. Like, if the Commanders won because Daniels goes off again, would I be surprised? No. I have watched the NFL for 2 decades. I know how this sport works. That would not surprise me in the slightest. But I'm not nervous that I think the Commanders should be favored and that they're really, I'm not nervous because I think that's going to happen. Do I think Jaden Daniels will probably play well? Yeah, absolutely I do. Like, he's the best rookie quarterback I've ever seen, even over what Andrew Luck did in 2012. But I do think the Eagles, I'm nervous because I know the Eagles should win this game. Like, outside of Jaden Daniels against Jalen Hurts, that might be the only, and you could argue it's not even an advantage because there's times Jalen Hurts has been special and elite as well in the playoffs and even this year during the regular season. So Jalen could very possibly outplay Jaden Daniels on Sunday. That wouldn't be surprising at all. Outside of the quarterback, though, that's the position you could say the Commanders have the advantage. Outside of that, where are the Commanders better than the Eagles? Like, that's why I'm nervous, because the stakes are so high, so naturally you're nervous because you want this one so bad. That's part of why it's nervous for me, is that, like, I'm not going to lie, I've never loved an Eagles team more than this one, than the 2024 Eagles. So I want, personally, that's why I'm nervous, because I don't want this season to end. It would be a hurtful, long offseason to not see a banner raised for this team, because I love this team, this 2024 Eagles, so much. So that's part of the nerves. But also, it's like I said, they just have the better roster. They're the better football team. They're at home. The weather is not going to create the flukiness of Eagles-Rams. Like, that blizzard was unbelievable, and I'll never forget that game. It created for some of the best pictures in the history of sports that I'm going to put up on this wall behind me, as you guys can see in my podcast studio. None of that's going to be there for the Eagles this week. So, yeah, I mean, Jaden Daniels is great, but the Eagles have the number one defense in football. They have the number one defensive tackle in football right now in Jalen Carter. That's maybe the best defensive player in the playoffs left, like the way he's playing right now, going up against a backup guard. I just, they're healthy. Quinyon's going to play. Goedert's going to play. Jalen's going to play. The only guy we don't know if he's going to be in there is Cam Jurgens, but I do think he'll be in there. If not, I project Landon Dickerson's at center, and I would say Tyler Steen is at left guard. So I just think they're going to get this done, and I just want them to so bad. So that's the nerves, is they should do it. It would be devastating if they don't. And the other thing is why I love this team, even more than the 2022 Eagles, is that there's something different about them. Like, why I really do think this one's going to end in confetti, unlike 22 and kind of like 2017, is just, doesn't it feel different? Like, it feels special. I don't want to say the 2022 Eagles didn't feel special, but maybe it's because everything was so easy. There weren't a lot of like moments. Like last week. Last week was a moment. Like in a championship run, like those kind of games define the legacy of that team. They define the run. When you see those moments, you're like, okay, yes, they're built to win a championship. Like, I'm going to be watching the documentary, America's Game on NFL Network, about the 2024 Philadelphia Eagles, and they're going to be highlighting this game against the Rams, this blizzard. Like, this was the moment you said, oh, this is a team of destiny. It just, I don't know. I like to quantify things on this podcast, you know what I mean? And this one's not like that. It's more narrative, it's more mystical, but, just nothing of substance to analyze. But there is something just different and special about this team that's kind of like the 2017 Eagles, like the way they overcome adversity, like when injuries happen, when their backs are against the wall and the other team's driving down inside the 20 with the season on the line. Like, the game against the Jaguars, against Baltimore, against Los Angeles. I mean, so many moments this year, like when they're counted out passing the ball, what they did against the Pittsburgh Steelers. 2-2, it feels like all hope is lost, right? The collapse is, here it comes, and they win 10 straight. Like, this team, like 2017, just has that championship resilience. And I'm not saying the 2022 Eagles didn't, but they just rolled through the regular season because that team was so talented. They rolled through the playoffs. They had all 22 starters healthy in the Super Bowl. And was there anyone even really dealing with anything outside of like Jalen's shoulder? And how bad was that? Because Hurts had one of the best performances in Super Bowl history. So I don't know. And I'm not saying you have to go through that kind of stuff to win a title, but it helps. And when you prove over and over again that you can overcome that kind of stuff, it makes you feel a lot more confident that that team has the makeup to get this thing done. Because it's not easy to win a Super Bowl. These are not 7-game series where if you mess up once, you have a chance again tomorrow, next week. No, there is no tomorrow. There is no next week. If Jalen Carter doesn't get to Matt Stafford last week, they might be going home, and they might not be playing in this football game. It's hard to beat Jordan Love, then Matt Stafford, then Jaden Daniels, then potentially Pat Mahomes or Josh Allen to win it all. Like, talk about a tough road to get to a championship. But if anybody's going to do it, I really feel like this team's going to do it. I don't know. That's what the heart's saying right now. That's what the Eagles fan of me is saying. That's what the Eagles historian is telling me. Like, I like to compare Eagles teams. Like, the current Eagles team I'm watching, I like to compare it to the past a lot. Because eventually you're like, you kind of know a team's identity based on the past. Like, you kind of know what kind of season it is, how the way things are going. And I've seen this kind of story before. You know, we've seen certain stories repeat themselves. I think this is the 2017 story, not 2022. I hope I'm right. Like, I really hope I'm not wrong here. But I'm getting 2017 vibes. I just think this team's going to do it. And Sunday it continues against the Commanders. Kickoff is at 3 o'clock. We'll have the post-game show for you live right here on Locked On Eagles. Afterwards, I'll be in Philadelphia for it, so hoping to see a lot of you guys down there. Until then, that's going to do it for Locked On Eagles. Thanks so much for making us your first listen each and every day. Go Birds. Here comes the NFC Championship. 2 more, everybody. 2 more. Fly, Eagles, fly.